Well, welcome to our latest edition of Techman Talks Dynamics. We're back again. I've had a little bit of a slow end to the year with our podcast. We're doing two in quite quick succession, and the reason being is Microsoft have released their document with what's planned for the spring release for Dynamics 365. Business Central will have focusing today, but they've also done the Power Platform and the CRM products as well. So we've had a very brief look through. It's been out for a couple of days now, and we always caveat this with it's Microsoft's first
early days.
There'll more be added.
Yeah, we haven't seen this yet. It's not even available on preview yet.
And
not
the descriptions of what's there. Sometimes
They're a bit
there's
woolly.
2 lines, isn't there? It's kind of, this could mean. Is
But
it what we hope it
But
is, or is it what
people
it is?
should understand what is coming. They should always say, it could impact what you do today. It could avoid
Causing you
unnecessary
problems,
customization. It could avoid clashes. So it's important that people understand what's coming, so we can talk through that. But we haven't seen it, and people need to remember that just because we're announcing it now and they're saying it's part of the next wave, it's not necessarily going to come in the first release, which is in April. So there's a big chunk of it that we March, probably preview in March, general availability April. So it says. So. Yes, but some of it will be later.
But it's a signpost in the direction of travel they're going, and it gives an indication. So we'll go through what we do. We'll always update this as we do future podcasts if things change.
Yeah, we'll do another one when it's actually released, because that can be different. But
okay, so they always break it down into like development, functionality, integration with other applications, and so on and so forth. So is there anything in terms of what you've seen that you think, that looks really good, or is it just a general? We're seeing more small evolution of the product. But is there anything that stands out that you?
If we're looking at application, the big focus has been on what has up till now been called jobs,
right?
And is now going to be called projects.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs project
and called projects. So all for the developers out there, all of the table names, because if they change the table names and the field names, it's still job number as a field. Yeah. It's captioned project number.
Yeah.
Otherwise they'll break.
So it's going to be a bit confusing for people who've got the history. They'll probably remember that. Oh yeah, they changed the name and go look for job. But for new people who are trying to create a report,
the project number field won't exist.
It's the first time I can kind of recall. There's been a couple of instances where they've used captions, dynamic captions, kind of, the dimension names are dynamic captions. So you change the dimension, it changes the column at the heading. So they've done that. I'm a bit disappointed they didn't use dynamic captions here, and you could decide whether you wanted to call it jobs or projects.
You know what though? Once somebody gets used to want, does it matter? It's more about what it does than what it's called.
Does the name change? What's happening to the actual?
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's probably more important, and I think some of the changes that they're making means that people might choose to use it where they haven't previously, because it will allow you to properly manage projects.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of integrating better with your inventory and your manufacturing processes, and being able to understand costs and capturing costs around a project rather than an individual order. So you've seen people try to use things like dimensions to report against what a project is costing. That's a bit of a pain, because you have to add the dimension. You can never get rid of it, and it's just a cost.
If you've got any development or any third-party extensions on for jobs as now, those are probably going to need a very thorough test this time round. And otherwise you'll get unintended consequences. And one of the things they've done, which I really like, by the way, is you can archive projects. So, previously you had a list of every job you'd ever done, which could get very long very quickly.
That's what I thought it was, but it's not. That's not what it is. What you can do is you can archive a version of a project. So...
but then wouldn't you delete the original?
No, so you just have, like with a sales order, you can archive a sales order, something like that.
Okay.
So if you want to modify it,
so
you archive a version. The job's still there. I thought it was what you just said, and I was like, yes, because our job system, we've got jobs going back years, and you can't clear them down.
Yeah, but you could use it for that, couldn't it? Because in effect, when the job is over and complete, you put a copy in the archive and then delete the original.
You can't delete jobs. You cannot delete jobs. So unless there's another change, you can't delete jobs.
That would be interesting to see, because you think, but if you've had any customization to the jobs, you'll need to have the similar customization done to the archive.
Archives, yeah.
Otherwise, the fields that you've added to the
Yeah.
job
Yeah.
or project now won't go across the archive. So already we're into the devil is in the detail.
A nice feature they've added is the ability to change the build to and sell to on the task.
Yeah,
side.
because
so
you could never do
common,
that
isn't it?
before. I mean, why that hasn't been there forever?
So you
I
can
don't
have a
know.
higher level job that covers multiple customer sites, etc.
Yeah,
Well,
and you can create and you can invoice projects. When we're jumping about a bit, but we're doing it in a better order than they've
Yeah.
done it on the release notes. But you can have multiple customers on a project.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're running a project that is across multiple customers, then that is now possible to do. And you can have different sell to, build to, and just like you can everywhere else in the system, which you've never been able to do in jobs, it's really restrictive.
So you mentioned something though, where that jobs and project switch. Is there something that could break either development or third-party ISV apps that you've gone in? Do we need to test it?
Well, they've changed. If they haven't changed the
And the
table
underlying,
names, then in
it should
some
be.
ways
It
it's
should
still work.
better.
It
But
wouldn't be a big change, Liam.
it's just
But
confusing.
It is confusing because, when you implement Business Central in an organisation, usually that organisation's terminology changes to match Business Central very quickly, within a number of weeks. And so anybody using jobs will be talking about that job or job number or whatever, and suddenly
What does that
it
actually
won't-
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And then on the other
organisations are
side,
gonna change.
if you've never used jobs before and you start using it when it's
Yeah.
projects, and you then want to write a report using Power BI, you're looking for the field job number because it's no longer it's not a project number. It's a bit messy.
What do you see on an error? Is it the project number or job number?
Yeah, and again, does anybody really care whether it's called project or jobs? It's what it does that's the
Consistency
most
is probably-
important. Why you have to have two names for it? I don't know. It's like them saying one day, "Oh, let's change vendors to suppliers," because that's standard terminology. It's just not going to happen. Why? It's just not going to.
I always find they've done a few because we never used to use the word inventory in the UK, did we? But obviously that global product stock and now became inventory. I don't know if projects mean something different on the other side of the
so maybe
the pond. And it's
But I think it's good that jobs or projects is getting some love, and it's more consistently. The functionality around this is coming up much more in line with sales orders, and perhaps service management got some love a few releases ago. So it is good, and
that's something we'll keep our eye on.
Assemble to project, I think, as well is a good feature to have. So if you're I don't know, if you're doing a project which will involve various assemblies throughout, you can assemble based on project milestones rather than a sales order, which I think is a really good feature to have and might be good for some customers.
It is, but one of the downsides that we always find is that if you're using jobs for internal, production or assembly, there's no shipping feature on a job, so you can't ship anything. You can just consume it and it disappears, but there's no way of shipping it. That would be a nice one to look at.
So and projects by definition is more kind of projects on site, isn't it, rather than a project.
Well, that's
internally, maybe. Yeah.
That's the thought process probably, but how it gets used. I mean, from a manufacturing perspective, when it's designed toward, a lot of customers are using jobs for that process. You can't ship it out the
the release notes are a little bit patchy, but there is some information about kind of automatic releasing source documents and things alongside jobs. So it might be that that's going to get better, but we shall see, because it's not worked very well before having a sales order on a job, has it?
No.
So whereas this kind of suggests that they're going to attack that, but there's not enough detail to really say.
Well, you should be able to tag a sales order against a job, and a purchase order is probably more important.
This is what that's kind of alluding. This is kind of alluding to, but I don't know how far they're going to go with that. So. So lots of jobs. Should we move on from jobs? Because to be fair, there's not. We don't have huge amounts of customers that use the jobs.
I think
because exactly
the
reasons that we've said, we use it internally really heavily, so it's going to affect us. We're going to have to move to the new terminology. But I think some of the changes they're making do open it up for some of our customers to use and use really well, especially where they are trying to manage costs for a project rather than by a particular order.
There's a lot of BC users out there doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the other functionalities I'm interested in, and I don't know really what this does, is the ability to connect to Shopify Business to Business Edition. So
Pricing, I think, is one of the key things.
Pricing, accounts, so you don't have to pay for it. It can just go onto the customer account. It says they'll be able to see their order histories, order status, billing and payments. So, I mean, that's there's one or two ISVs out there who are probably slightly unhappy at the moment, we've got more customers that are business to business than business to consumer.
Yeah.
I think Shopify hasn't really caught fire. I think
Pricing
integration
for that very reason.
this
For that
very
very reason, yeah.
So I'm interested to go and kind of fire up a Shopify Business to Business Edition. I didn't even realise that was a thing, but potentially,
I don't know if it was called what used to be called Shopify Plus. I don't know if they've rebranded it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
look at that.
to date it's been one price list, one discount group.
Yeah. It's not enough. Not enough.
Which B2C was.
It's good though, isn't it? Because sometimes Microsoft have a habit of announcing something like they did with Shopify 2 or 3 years ago, whenever, and then nothing ever happens. It's like a tick in the box, and we moved on. It's good to see that they've continued improving that, because it is a great feature when people see it. If they haven't got an e-commerce platform, the Shopify one, having that out of the box is appealing.
Well,
I know it doesn't do everything, but
when we've worked out what this does and how it works, there's almost a podcast on that topic, because I think there's a lot of customers out there who would like an integrated web store, and actually this might do it relatively cheaply out of the box.
Well, if it's anything like the current previous version, it was probably at best an hour to set it up, and that's with the Shopify end as well. Very quick. If it's that level, then compared to going and building bespoke integration to a website, which, if depending upon the level of functionality, could be a lot of work and cost.
And am I right, the Shopify subscription, the cost of it is depending on how many orders you take and stuff like that?
Well, I can't remember.
It was transactional based, and it didn't take long, because that was always the argument. Shoppify looks really cheap, and it did, and I'm no expert on that.
Until you get build volume.
Yes, once you start building it, the price does increase, and that's where some of the other vendors that we work with would say, well, we've got a lot more functionality in the product for the price once you get to those volumes, because Shopify didn't have the functionality. It's coming, as we can see.
The plus
didn't
side,
have the integration.
The plus side is you can get going quickly, and
yes,
you can prove that your customers will actually place orders via the web.
It's finding out what's right for the customer at that time and where it's going. But I think this will give people confidence that even if they're starting, they're not going to outgrow Shopify with that extra level of integration.
That's worth looking at again.
Okay, at the risk of triggering somebody, should we talk about service management? Because that's had a little bit of a few changes coming through as well. There's also been some changes around on the Power Platform list around field service, integration of field service within CRM to Business Central. And I know we've all got our own thoughts on service management and
history on service, trying to make this work and not having a great success.
So that's a fair place to start, isn't it? The history with this has
field
been,
service
with field service
and service management in BC as well is not without its challenges.
I mean if you go and look at a service organisation that's got a service desk, 20 people on the service, 100, 200, 300 engineers, service management isn't for you. It or hasn't been for you without a lot of changes.
So this is the ability for people on the road who need to interact back into BC,
so you've got your preventative maintenance type work, you've got your call outs, all that
ordering
kind of stuff.
Existing stock and all
so
that.
There's loads of elements to it.
So I quote from the documentation: it offers a seamless and integrated solution for managing service tasks, consumption and financial transactions.
So just to anyone who's listening, field service is a CRM app.
You old cynic.
So this isn't something that comes out of the box of Business Central, is it? Field service is another application, part of the CRM family.
Yeah, it's like customer service or sales.
Just for anyone who wasn't aware of it who's listening to this, I know we know that. So there's an element here where the integration between the two has been
non-existent,
challenging.
Well, you mentioned inventory earlier, and there was no integration with inventory.
Yeah.
And I've said, I've never met a service engineer that didn't need a part occasionally and want a consumer part or want a
that's always been a challenge,
no
matter what you do, is an engineer being able to manage the stock.
Availability.
If you've got an engineer van that has stock on the van, managing the stock in that van and replenishing it,
And
then also
requisition,
requisition a part that they then need to complete that
all
job.
needs to be bought in.
Yeah.
So I want to see this because
So what are they promising?
It's version 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what does I kind of looked at the consumption? I thought, what does that mean? Is that consumption of parts or is it
Time.
consumption of time?
Yeah.
We don't know. So
So all a
yeah,
bit
we
woolly.
want parts, obviously.
Well, that's more important than time for most of our customers. I think that's higher up the list than time, unless they're recharging time to the car. They're charging by the hour.
Yes, it's probably as much as if you're charging for the service, then it's the time and materials.
I just think there's a bit of there's a powerful solution for managing work orders and consumption field service and efficiently invoicing and fulfilling them in Business Central. Somebody from marketing's got to this particular one, haven't they? Or ChatGPT, to correct.
So is it safe to say watch this space with regards to service? But it's something
We
that
don't-
we're going
we
to be
don't know the
spending some
detail
time.
yet.
But we know there's a demand for it, so it's
Yeah.
it's interesting to see. But
It'd be
you
interesting to-
mentioned if it's version 1,
Some
Yeah, don't read it and think this is the answer to my
mentioned I'm a
prayers.
cynic with field service. Field service, if you in the demo, is lovely. It's got some really glossy, and everybody goes, "Ooh, that we want that, we want that," and then the devil is
Shiny.
in the detail when you get to implement it. So I think we've got to
set
devil
expectations.
is in the detail of kind of getting into the what it actually.
Another
does.
one on the Power Platform that I like, really useful on the integration to approvals. So finally, the Power Platform approval templates and functionality. So rather than using BC inbuilt workflows, you can now use Power Automate, or you've been able to use Power Automate, but you had to build the logic within Power Automate. There was no, who approves this? It was just a field you had to type in as to who the email address, or go and build some logic in Power Automate. So
Mickey Mouse.
yeah, so within
Disney.com.
BC we have a
Oh, you are sick this morning.
in BC you've got the kind of setup table as to who can approve whose documents. It's a bit flat structure. It doesn't always meet everybody's needs. That table is now exposed within Power Automate.
Okay.
And the other issue we've had as well is that people want to know who approved something, and it never wrote that into BC. And yes, there's within the approval part of
You can find
our
out how it
platform.
took some digging.
It wasn't particularly easy, so that's now been pushed back into BC.
Okay.
So you can see that those two we've been asked for. That stopped us, I think, using approvals a number of times. I've heard that over the last 18 months, 24 months on consultants saying, we'd like to use it, but, and it's typically those two things.
Well, hopefully we're getting to the point now because I think we said on this podcast before that the inbuilt workflow engine for approvals in BC is just horrible, and needs to be deprecated. But they can't do that until Power Automate is a satisfactory replacement, and you kind of hope that we're in version 3 or 4 of that kind of iteration now, and we're getting there.
I mean, you can build it all in Power Automate and have always been able
you
to,
shouldn't have
but
to
it
build
takes
it.
a
You should
lot of
just
work to
turn
do
it
it.
on,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Another one, I don't know if you noticed under country and regional, that is particularly relevant for our customers is that install UK localization as an app.
Yeah.
So I think this is great, and for new customers is brilliant. You can effectively anything that's specific to the UK, rather than having to install a country database, you can just add the app.
Have they done this for any other local?
Denmark.
So there's been other geographies that's happened. So this is they're going to be their new way of doing this. I'm
So
guessing.
it means for GB it's now based upon W1, the worldwide.
I haven't seen it, Matt. But I assume that and I didn't look
There's
too
only,
hard at Denmark. So
It's only making text
Sorry,
digital
Danish.
that's localised now anyway, isn't it? A
Well,
lot of
yeah,
people.
that's an app
pieces.
already.
Yes.
I think
that-
it's.
So I think that's why we
accounting
were
periods.
Okay.
I think that was the only real.
But
GB
then that's been,
functionality.
I mean, the W1 has been getting closer at the
Yeah.
accounts. And so you had the county periods and the county periods GB, which was slightly-
on the details, it does say that the localised version for the UK is now delivered as a set of extensions on top of the W1 base. This offers a data upgrade, making it easier for moving previous localisations.
Just like the availability on that. That's
But it's
not
from an
available to look. So
ISVs,
that's saying
then can release their apps
August.
across more.
That one.
August 24.
That's late.
Okay,
So-
but what's interesting in that is going to be the data migration, because you've got maybe UK localizations on every posted sales invoice that would have been in the standard field in the standard database. That will no longer exist in W1, and so it's got to get into the field in the table extension in the GB localization extension. So I think it'd probably be quite straightforward for them to, once you're on it, it'll be fine. Getting on it if you've got a big data set, that might, but they've done some things. I mean, the current release where they went from multiple table extensions to one table extension, I was slightly apprehensive about that, and that's gone through okay. So I'm sure they'll engineer this.
That's why we have our managed service for.
Yeah, but I would probably, if it comes out in August, I might update in September. I might let somebody else
do it first. Yeah, I think that's the view we're taking.
If I'm a big complex one,
we need to leave enough time to talk about Copilot, because that's
Copilot, AI. Yes.
Yeah. Everybody's talking about AI, Copilot, and again, notice with this that the availability, they haven't even put a date in yet. So whilst they're announcing it'll be there on preview, so even when they're preview a lot of it until July, but there's they're basically going to start building in Copilot functions into Business Central. So I had a quick look at it, but it will creating sales lines automatically.
Well,
using Copilot.
The one that creates sales lines easily with Copilot. So you can click on a button, you can type in almost like a question as to what you want to, and it then goes and finds the item. Or you could just type in the item number.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather just type in the item number.
Get it right first time.
At the risk,
that didn't seem an enhancement.
At the risk of being as old and cynical as
it's
James.
It's one of those lab kind of. It's a good idea in the lab, in the real world.
Well, somebody's been sat there scratching their
head. We've got to put Copilot in Business Central. We've got to put it in. Where can we put it?
The one that I quite like is the analysis tabs.
Yes, that was good. So
I think it's amazing how many times the analysis views that came up in the last couple of releases, and I've got this release. They are so fast because they're server side with big volumes of data. There's another conversation about why you need third-party tools or some third-party tools.
One of the things we missed on the list was that there's another 35 reports that you can have
Excel layouts
that have got Excel layout.
But the idea of being able to type a question in and get the analysis view that represents the answer to that question, because I think, I do see users not really exploiting analysis views to the full because they don't realise that this by this by this.
It is a mindset. There's
a lot of kind of.
I've had that.
Get your head around it. So I think that making that easy is going to that'll be the biggest Copilot one for me.
Yeah. I mean, the bank reconciliation you've been talking about for ages. That looks like it's now going to ship in generally on April, but.
Yeah,
was it not quite as exciting as you were hoping?
I think I'm over it now. I was quite excited at first, and this took so long. I'm a bit over it.
But AI bank reconciliation. I mean, I think. Look, there will be specific organisations that have lots of payments from customers that they've never had a payment from. They get one-off payments from different organisations. That will really help. But for most of our business-to-business customers, it comes in with the same reference each time. Yeah. It's not
like I said, the
gloss is gone integration that goes onto the bank and gets it saves them way more time than this will.
I mean, the feature.
It was new, shiny, and I got excited.
In November last year, we saw a feature on Directions, the Microsoft Partner Conference, about some embedded AI within BC, whereby a little pane appears on the right-hand side. You ask it to type in a question about your data, and it goes off and comes back with the answer. That really powerful. Things like who do we sell the most of this product to in the last 3 months? Here's my answer.
Is that Copilot in BC, or is that Copilot in Power BI that's then going back into BC? Because look at the data, isn't it?
You could use it in Power BI. It's already there in Power BI, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's
and if you've got the data's there, then you can already use that in BI. But it does save you if you've got it in BC. Then
two more Copilot ones. So learn more about fields with Copilot. So what this is basically saying is when at the moment the help goes off to one page, basically about when you say learn more. And my understanding of this is what it's going to do is Copilot's going to kind of curate sources. So effectively it will give you more than just the standard help for your... And I think that's really good because I think there's lots of resources out there that talk about particular areas of functionality, and the learn more and Copilot being able to give you a list of, ranked sources which can help you do that. So I think that, because if people don't know what to put in, they don't know what to put in. The other one, which I'm struggling to find the heading on, was the one where it kind of said about, I think the description I saw was about item setup, where it said, look, when you've set this type of item up before, you've completed these fields as well as on those items. Do you want to do that on this? So that's almost bringing kind of
create product information.
AI
suggested variants was the other one.
And so that kind of help with
it's like manual
master data implementation. That I think has got a lot of potential. So that was.
But again,
I'm an AI
it's all a bit
skeptic in
fluffy.
general, but
this is all a bit fluffy at the moment, isn't it? In terms of what we're going to get and when we're going to get it.
But I like the concept. I like the idea, and I think that it may take them 2 or 3 versions to get it right.
I suspect it's waiting for the lawyers to agree what the wording is going to say when a box appears, and you have to tick to accept that Microsoft is looking at your data and analysing.
Well, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
Well, there's now customer specified encryption key, isn't there? So that's coming. So actually, your data can be encrypted with your own encryption key, which in some ways I'm pleased about. That it's very secure. But in another way, if you lose the key, it's on you, because nobody's going to get that back.
That would never happen.
That's what they said about restores and tenant moves and all this other stuff that they've had to build into the admin centre.
The other one on Copilot, just finished off there, was around Power Automate. So for a little while we've had Copilot in Power Automate. So if you're designing a flow, you can ask it, kind of text in terms of create me a flow to do this, or amend it, and it will go and suggest changes to your flow. They're going to be introducing that into the BC connections, so those questions will understand relative to the integrations to BC as
well.
well.
Almost like natural language, rather than having to understand what you're coding.
Yeah.
Gives you a starting point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I talked about the kind of Copilot suggesting kind of places to go look up, but share error details to get help from another user. So it will copy the error details. You've got an option to copy it into Outlook or Teams now, I think, to just send it complete.
So someone else can tell you to stop being an idiot.
I don't think we do that to too many customers, Liz, I hope. But I think, the fact that you get the original error message rather than, it's come up with an error, can you help? Well, what was the details? I don't know. I've clicked OK. So I think that's a little thing, but sometimes the little things are the ones that really win. So,
do you want to go down a bit on the screen, Liz? You've missed some stuff. There was I saw one where you could drag and drop multiple files.
Oh, that's the development. That's this bit.
User
So a kind of a drop zone where you can drag files. They've kind of created a new, from a code perspective, a new kind of add-in which allows you to drop multiple files.
Yeah, because the man did one at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, does the code, if we use that a lot because kind of one of the most common thing is, can I upload this file and it creates a journal or something like that. So it's a common customization to use that. I think the code behind that will need to have a loop to process the files as they come in. So we might need a code review everywhere that's used, just to make sure that works as expected.
What do you mean you've dropped 10,000
Files.
files and it doesn't work?
Well, we could sell some more stories with myself.
WTF, yeah.
I think there is that. We've always pushed people into SharePoint.
Could Copilot swear back at them?
You don't want people storing all their stuff in the local database, do you? Because it just
Hopefully that. I mean, that's why a lot of the time we're setting that up to go and store it in Azure or wherever. Yeah.
Some legislation items as well, VAT dates, which of course
On the previous.
some sustainability things. I wasn't too sure.
The sustainability things relates mainly to some EU legislation,
Okay. Right.
which, as we're no longer in the EU, does not yet affect the UK. However, we will have a lot of customers that will adopt those because they want to trade with the EU, so therefore may have to comply with them. So it was there, yeah.
Our government will probably get their act together at some point and
You're very hopeful there. Field service will be working before that.
yeah, which government? Quite.
I wouldn't put any of them. I thought it was more in the governance area, but this idea of linking business centre environments to Power Platform environments. So rather than doing it all independent, you can do it once at the admin level now. So you couldn't have people. You have to go into each time
Okay,
there's a
so people
setup.
don't get to choose.
Yeah, you can actually set it up from a global admin.
I'm going to add something that isn't on the list, and that is
That's new.
Bit woolly.
this is something they're taking. Well, this is around. We thought that in this release they would deprecate the old sales price features and move completely over to the new ones. I don't know if that's going to happen. However, I think we now need to sweep up the last few of our customers and people that are still using the old sales
saying
should
Q2,
now
isn't
move
it?
over. Yeah. So that
Q2 2025 or
24.
yeah. So we've for our customers we're doing some analysis to work out who's still using the old ones, and we'll speak to you about moving over to the new features. We're looking at people who've got customization in that area, so won't be able to use necessarily the standard tools to move from one to the other. But yeah, if you've got the our cloud cover service will be in touch to talk about that, but anybody that hasn't, you need to be aware that
And
you
test the
need to move
migration
over.
process as well,
Yeah.
because it can take a while.
It can take a while, and it can do some strange things as well.
I mean, if
different, isn't it?
If you've got lots of sales pricing where you've been changing dates, for instance, at the item level, you're not necessarily because the costs change, let's say, and you're changing the price of that item. So you could potentially end up with, many different variations of pricing. The new price list, the price list record has a start and end date. So you could end up with a lot of different price lists, and that could be really confusing to try and understand what is the price list.
So I just wanted to mention that because it's not a new feature, it's a feature that's been there for ages, but I would expect at some point soon that deprecation will happen.
It's sat in a thing called feature management.
Yeah.
It's an optional feature which you
It is
turn
at the
on,
moment,
you can't
it is
turn
at the
off
moment,
once
but
it's on.
I think there's going to
It
be.
does say Q2 2024. I can confirm.
Yeah.
So feature update, new sales pricing experience.
So my suggestion would be for people before they move to this wave one, if they can do the work to move over to the new
Pending
sales pricing.
deprecation.
It's much better to do it in a controlled way rather
We've had
than
about
a
3
panic.
years' notice on that one, though, haven't we? It keeps going back.
Yeah, but this is. I mean,
We've done a few.
I'm
we've done
having a
fair
grumpy
few,
morning,
but-
so I'll apologise to my friends at Microsoft. But I mean, they need
It's
to
like they
make
could listen this far.
the new feature needs to be equivalent or better than the feature they're deprecating. You can't just introduce something new and it's worse and expect customers to migrate to it. It's got to be equivalent or better. So that they could make the deprecation faster by actually probably doing more consultation at the beginning of the dev process. So when they introduce something, it's ready for use. And pricing wasn't when they introduced it. I mean, I still think there are some gaps in terms of what pricing, and it's not necessarily how pricing is designed to be used. It's unintended kind of ways people have, I want to use the word, hacked it.
I mean, I think when they introduced the ability, with interfaces to have your own pricing model, that was great.
Yes.
But I'm not sure why they decided to go down this price
And there's
list
some really
route.
illogical bits about why can't I have a price list with, prices and discounts on the way that it doesn't work the way I think customers expect it to work.
And we still can't do edit in Excel on a price list.
I know, which is
So
one place you want to use edit Excel
Exactly,
is
yeah.
a price list, and
when you've
so
got 20,000 items.
the other thing is, I mean, I sat in a room at Microsoft and they said we won't, because just create an interface to the old pricing code and leave that as an option there. You could have that's what interfaces are for, right? So why not just keep everybody happy and just create it as the old interface? Oh, we'd have to maintain the code. Maintain the code. I'm sorry, that doesn't wash. Show me a line of pricing code, old pricing code, that they've changed in the last 15 versions.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed forever.
It's
So the
2
idea
years
they have
of
to
versions.
maintain it, maintenance for me means doing something to it. I'm a little disappointed with the kind of the way that they've approached sales pricing. I think that it's not very customer centric. I think you know, and I still think
I find sometimes the price list model fits well with some customers.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of our customers, with that, we don't cause any panic because a lot of people will just migrate over.
Yeah.
And it's
anybody who's
absolutely
implemented
fine.
the last couple of years should have gone straight onto
Yeah,
sales
which they
pricing.
have.
Yeah.
A lot of the existing customers have moved, and it's been okay.
Well, they have if they're with a quality partner who actually thinks ahead. Some of the SaaS transfers we've got are still on. You know,
Yeah, they are. So we've got some work to do. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because it's not on the shiny new list, but it is something that will
and
need
some of the
action.
customization. If you've got customization that calculated to sales price, a lot of that will need changing.
Yeah, we're on it for our customers. But yeah, everybody should be aware of it. So I just wanted to mention that at the end.
Okay.
Bit of a downer at the end. From there you go.
Well, I don't think it's a downer. I mean, it's good that they did something with sales pricing, but it could have been better. It could, and it still can be better. It's not. I don't think it's going to take an awful lot of work. It's just finishing it off.
I think it probably helps with CRM integration, though. I think it's more aligned to the way pricing works.
Well,
Yes,
maybe that's the
yeah.
bigger plan. So anyway,
Would
do
be
we need to
great-
go and get
It would
some?
be great if anyone from Microsoft Dev Team who listens to our podcast religiously, I'm sure, wants to come on one of the weeks and explain some of these reasons.
That would be
We would
brilliant.
love to have you. So, you know.
And now we're going to go
We'll
and get
have a
James.
debate on it.
We need
Yes.
to go and get James some cake or something to chew him.
Okay, so well, look, thank
Alcohol, not cake.
It's what 10 o'clock
Yeah,
in the morning.
it's also the 1st of February, so no more
Yes.
dry January.
Not too sure. Oh, yeah,
January's
sorry.
over. We can all celebrate tonight.
For those of you that did dry January, well done. But that's thanks for going through it all. I think it's good to see the product still moving forward, and even with things removing, they've got to do that, and they can't just keep bloating it out and never
Yeah.
removing. You've got to cut
Agreed.
something every so often.
100%.
So. Hopefully it's been of interest to those people watching or listening, and we'll keep you updated as we get more information, so you don't have to spend hours going through their release notes like we obviously have done before we got on this podcast this morning. Right, okay, I look forward to joining us on the next edition of Techman Talks Dynamics in the coming weeks. Thanks a lot, guys.